Hi, I'm Jason Sterling. I'm a gay dad, and I was wondering just this morning as I was dropping off my 13-year-old, why is school so boring? Okay, so, I was wondering, why is school so boring? Why is it so uninteresting? Because I'll tell you, you know, I hated school when I was in school, and my son hates school. And most of his friends, at least, well, I'm going to say all of his friends. I've not done a poll of all of his friends, but I'm going to say even all of his friends also just don't like school. And it got me to thinking, how is it I didn't like it? And we cut to 30 years later, 20, 30 years later, and they still haven't done anything to make it more interesting or more fun, at least from what I can see, at least from the reaction of children in the school. Now, let me throw in this disclaimer because I know, I hear you out there. Your kid loves it. Okay, great. I totally get that. Some kids do love it. It does suit some kids. I've known kids tell me they love to go to school. They love to learn at school. They love the whole kind of thing about it. And with me, when I hated school, it wasn't just the boredom and the tedium of it, the monotony of it. There were other kind of things I didn't like about it. But by and large, came down to the same thing, that I didn't really like it. And my son doesn't like it. And why is that? Why is it that we still can't seem to make it interesting and fun? Now, another disclaimer I'm going to throw in here is that, of course, I'm coming at you with my point of view from the state of Oklahoma, and I will acknowledge right off the bat that I don't really live in a pro-education state. I don't really live in a state where education is taken seriously or where the resources needed to properly fund an educational system are devoted to it. And I would say by and large that a lot of the people in this state don't care about education. And I say that because our politicians don't care about education. And if we cared about education, we would elect people to office that actually care as well and would do something about it. And yes, I know you can't just throw money at a problem, but you also can't expect things to be fixed or get better for free. Just doesn't happen in our society, in our world. Okay, so let me disclaim that. I know where I live, and I know that part of the problem could come down to the fact that it is hard, very hard to attract and maintain competent professionals in that field. I definitely do understand that. It's not impossible. We have some really great teachers and some really great administrators, but it's very hard, and we don't have a lot of them. Now, that brings me to the point that it can be really tough, even talking about the issue with a lot of administrators and a lot of teachers. Either you get a sort of patronizing, like, that sort of response, which is not really a response. I mean, you could almost do that asleep. You could just put a video of someone's face doing that on a teacher asleep or an administrator asleep. It'll be fine. Or you get this sort of response. Now, this falls under the corporate category of, well, if it was fun, it wouldn't be work. I've heard that in my life from inept middle managers. And I'm sure you have too. And, there's that sort of opinion sometimes in education as well with people I've dealt with over the years my son have been in school. And even before that, I've had educational professionals in my clientele of, well, if it's boring and tedious, kids are just going to have to get used to that. That's just how life is. They just need to get used to the idea that everything's not always going to be fun. There's something to that. Everything's not always going to be fun. But life isn't really boring and tedious. At least it shouldn't be. And I think for most of us, we actively try not to make it boring and tedious. And if we had a job that was just really boring and tedious and not any fun, unless we were just trapped there, unless we just had no other choice, in which case we would hate it, we'd try to leave. We would try to make a move to someplace else. Most kids, of course, well, all kids don't actually have that choice. That's why they end up hating it, because all kids don't have that choice. Their parents, to some limited extent, do have that choice. They can elect to try to move their kids to private school, which may or may not be better. I mean, that's a toss-up. That's a toss-up if it's actually better. Or they can, if they can afford it, in both cases, either private school or this option, to homeschool, because there is a cost associated with homeschooling. It is the cost of the lost income of the parent who elects to stay home and pursue a career as a homemaker and, in this case, a teacher. So there's a cost there. But those are the two options that parents can elect sometimes to take for their kids. And I'll say that I do feel like sometimes the homeschooling option really does work well. It really does work well. And that is because it ties into how human beings learn. Through the entire scope of human history on this planet, for the vast, vast majority of the people on this planet, the humans on this planet, how we learned was observational, either through direct observation and mimicking, following what we've seen, or extrapolating outward from what we've seen to the next step, or through observation wherein someone shows us directly how to do something, and then we do a small bit of it and they finish it, and then we do a small bit and another small bit and they finish it, and we do another small bit, a small bit, a small bit, and so on and so forth until we can do it ourselves in a process of active learning. That's been the primary way. Up until about, I'd say 100 years ago for most people, that was how it took place. It was very much a one-on-one situation. Around 100 years ago, and don't get me wrong, I'm gonna throw in another disclaimer. This is my third disclaimer. I'm gonna throw in another disclaimer here. I understand why education exists. Education is a mass form of learning. It's an attempt at a mass form of learning. I certainly understand why that exists. We don't have enough people or resources in our modern framework of society to dedicate one person to every kid or every 2 to 3 kids or what have you, as would have taken place with parents and stuff, for the vast majority of evolution. We have evolved to learn in that fashion. I understand why education exists. We needed a mass form of trying to teach people, of learning. And to some extent, it does work. I would not say it doesn't work at all. Even people who say, well, I don't remember anything from school, or I never used algebra. I know I almost never used algebra either, but I will say this. When I did sit down with my son to do algebra, so, a lot of it came back. If there was instructions, I could help him by reading the instructions first and going, oh, okay, yeah, no, I remember that. That's going to be another problem. Let me say real quick here right now, this is a problem with education. You send stuff home for my kid to do, and you don't send any instructions. Where's the instructions? I'm looking at this stuff saying, okay, well, here's an algebraic formula. Oh, how do we do that again? Okay, where's your instructions? Let me look at it and I'll see if no instructions, just the worksheet with nothing on it. Just these problems. And then, even if I know how to do it, inevitably in this day and age, I'm going to hear, that's not how she showed us to do it. Okay, well, you know what? She did not include an example of how she wanted it. So you're going to get it this way. I'm going to teach you how to do it. My thought on life is, I really don't care if you can do it in a specific fashion, son. Just can you do it? Okay. I don't care if you beat the egg with a fork or a knife or a whisk, or put your fingers in there and stir it around. However you can get that egg beat and pour it into that pan to make some scrambled eggs. That's a success story for me. I have succeeded. Because you can feed yourself breakfast in the morning. So, okay, that's the other big problem. But yeah, there's not any instructions on stuff. Where was I going with that? I don't know. I got on a tangent there. But at the end of the day, yes, education does work to some extent. I do remember some things, and not very much, but some. Maybe the stuff I was interested in, maybe the stuff I really took to heart. And I do see why we do it. I do. I just don't understand why we can't do it in a more interesting fashion. And why we can't do it in a fashion. Yeah, it's not going to be as much fun as playing the video game. or going to see, blockbuster movie at the movie theater, but at least in a way that is fun enough that we do want to go and do it. I mean, there's a lot of things as an adult that I do go and do, or I go and learn to do because I have a real interest in it and it looks interesting. And it's not just that just suits my personality, because my interests are very broad. And sometimes there's things that I've never done before, and I look at it and I think, hey, maybe I do want to try that because that looks interesting. So why can't we make education look interesting? I don't know. Now, maybe they do some places. It's not Oklahoma. I don't think so. As bad as we are, I'm not going to go that far because I don't think that it's all just, we do suck at education. I don't think it's all that. For whatever reason, I think there's some resistance, like I said, on the part sometimes of educators and administrators. The idea is, oh, well, okay, it's boring and it's tedious. Well, guess what? That's life. Sometimes it's a lack of resources. Sometimes it's everything rolled into one. It is everything rolled into one. It's definitely a case of so many kids and trying to appeal to all of them because they all have different ideas and different things, that they're interested in. But I do wonder that, and I do feel like maybe if we could get to a point where you have an educational system that is not so regimented, where kids have a variety of attractive activities available to interact with one-on-one that they can choose from. And maybe the things they don't choose, we don't worry about as much. I don't know. I mean, I know the natural response to that is if we don't force kids to do math, they're not going to do math. Or if we don't force kids to do science, they won't do science. Or hey, if we don't force kids to do English, they won't do English. I'm not sure all that's true. I do think there's kids that have a natural aptitude towards saying, I want to write stuff, and kids who have a natural aptitude to, hey, I want to calculate things, or I want to take a math problem and figure it out like a mystery. Or science is the same way. I want to know, why are the planets going around the sun instead of just flying off into space? So I do think kids have different aptitudes that way and will gravitate towards the things they like. I also think that thing where I said, hey, I want to figure out the mystery of the math problem, that's also part of it. If you want kids to do a math problem, make it interesting. I noticed with my son's homework at one point, they had, I'm going to call this an attempt. They had this thing where, it was called like real life applications that still didn't make any sense. And I think the idea is we'll show them how they'll use it in life. Well, my son saw right through it. Of course, I did too. In that it was an algebraic problem, and you knew like how many units you started with, and how much money you made, and how much each unit was, but you didn't know how much you had sold, and sold was X. So you had to do the algebraic formula to figure out how many you had sold. Now, my son said, quite rightly, well, couldn't you just, how many you started with, and how many are left right now? Couldn't you just subtract what you got left from what you started with? Yeah. Or maybe your inventory system would just have a record of all of them you sold. Yeah. So, okay. But I'm going to still call it an attempt. Anyway, I would say stuff like that. Make it interesting. Make it into something that's fun and more of a game. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I can hear some groans out there. It's like, oh, it's not a game. It's to learn. You're there to learn. You're not there to have fun and play. And well, make it about having fun and play. Let them play. They don't play enough anymore either. That's why I think things actually have gotten worse over the last 2 to 3 decades. Because hell, my kid hardly ever got a recess. Got like 20 minutes recess each day. 20. When he was 5 years old, you give a 5-year-old 20 minutes a day, and if there was a drop of water out of the sky, if it was 1 degree below 32, I know, a lot of kids don't have coats. I get that. But if it was 1 degree below 32, I mean, if it was 33, they'd still go out, but if it's 31, they won't. It's 1 degree before 32. They wouldn't go outside at all. And I'm like, hey, why don't you let them go to the gym then and run around the gym, get out some of that energy? Nope. Nope, they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. No, they couldn't do it. There was PE in there, and the PE teacher needed the entire gym, including the stage, because it was also functioned as an auditorium, including the stage. No, they couldn't use the stage either. Well, no, they couldn't do that either. They just have to stay in their rooms, little caged animals. And Then we'll all wonder later in the day why they have all this pent up energy and they're pinging off the walls. Okay, so that's my rant. Why is education so boring? Why can't we make it better? What are your ideas? What do you think? Feel free to post below in the comments. Maybe you've got some great idea. I mean, I probably have, if I sit down and really thought about it, I probably do too. At least it like more than what I've put out here. You know, you could do an entire series on that. I'm sure someone has. Excuse me, it's that time of the morning, my allergies. It's just when I came home with my kid, I thought, hey, you know, every morning I drop him off. Every morning he's not happy. Every morning he's not looking forward to it. Wonder why. And I also wonder why, you know, in my first vlog, I had started watching the Foundation series. I'm still watching it. And all I can say is, I wonder why in the world would you buy that series? Why would you buy this series? Why would you buy this series? If all you're going to do is use a handful of place names and a handful of character names and a sort of very vague general idea of a galactic empire collapsing and a group of people trying to save it. Why would you buy that? Why would you buy that product to make a TV show out of it? And that's all you use from it. You really don't use the product itself. And the only thing I can think of is, I guess if they were going to do it and they were worried they were going to get sued because it was close enough, you know, the general idea, they thought, hey, maybe we should go ahead and buy the Foundation series from the Asimov estate, buy the rights from it or to it. And then once they had it, you know, so they won't get sued. And then once they had it, it's kind of like, well, we've got this. We can't just let it go to waste. I know. Let's at least use some names and, you know, some places and da-da-da-da. Either that or the estate assisted you. Well, you've got to use at least 10% of the book or we won't sell it to you. And so they culled out all these little bits. Somehow it added up to 10%. They said, there you go. We did it. And it still has nothing to do with the story. I don't know. That's my rant about it. Why would you do that? Now, that said, is it a good series? So far, it's an okay series. It's not bad. It's really pretty good. The last time I spoke, I just seen the second episode. They jumped the shark. I didn't really like the second episode that much. I did like the third one. The fourth one I really liked. And the fifth one I pretty much like. So it's kind of coming into its own. The writing is kind of coming into its own. It's not the Foundation novels. But it's a pretty good series. It is. It's a pretty good series. And so far, I'm pretty happy with it. I do really, you know, kind of like it. I kind of dig it. I think it's going to be a good series. I'm going to keep watching it. We'll see. Maybe by my third blog, I'll have a different opinion. But right now, I'm at a cautious watch it. A cautious, yeah, check it out. Check it out. It's pretty good. Other than that, there's not much else going on in my life. Just, you know, same old, same old. But I will always have something else to rant about in the future. So please like, subscribe, and hit notify. That way next time you can hear my thoughts on inane or not inane subjects. And in the meantime, thanks for watching.